You wake up and something feels different. Your body is enormous, your beard is wild, and when you look in the mirror, you are staring at the most feared and hated man in all of Russia. You are Rasputin. And today is the last day of your life. The year is 1916. You are in St. Petersburg, one of the grandest cities in the world, but also one of the most dangerous places you could possibly be right now. Enemies are everywhere, and most of them wear expensive suits and carry royal titles. You sit up in bed, and the first thing you feel is power. Not just physical power, though this body is massive and intimidating. You feel the kind of power that comes from knowing that the Tsar of Russia listens to every single word you say. Servants move quietly around your apartment. They know who you are. Everyone in this city knows who you are. The peasant from Siberia, who somehow walked into the royal palace and never left. To some you are a holy man. To others you are a monster. You splash cold water on your face and try to remember everything you know about this day. December 30th, 1916. Every history book tells you that this is the night Rasputin dies. The question is whether you can do anything about that at all. Breakfast arrives, and you eat alone. The food is rich, the kind a poor Siberian farm boy could never have dreamed of. But you cannot enjoy it because your mind is racing. You know the names of the men who are coming for you tonight. Prince Felix Yusupov is the one who will send the invitation. He is one of the wealthiest men in Russia, polished and charming on the outside. But tonight he is the man organizing your murder. And the terrifying part is that you cannot avoid him too, obviously. You look out the window at the frozen city below. The streets are gray and cold. World War I is draining Russia dry. Soldiers are dying by the millions. The people are starving. And somehow, in the middle of all this chaos, you became the most powerful man around. A letter arrives mid-morning. It is from the Empress Alexandra herself, asking for your guidance on a political matter. You hold the letter and feel the weight of it. The Empress trusts you completely. She believes you saved her son Alexei's life. And honestly, maybe you did. Alexei has hemophilia, a condition that makes bleeding nearly impossible to stop. Every time he gets hurt, the royal family panics, and every time you arrived and spent time with him, he somehow got better. No doctor could explain it. That mystery is what gave you all this power. You write back to the Empress carefully. But while you write, you are also thinking about tonight. The history books say you were poisoned, shot, beaten, and then drowned under the ice of the Neva River. Multiple methods, as if one was never going to be enough. You spend the late morning walking through your apartment trying to make a plan. The obvious answer is to simply not go to Yusupov's palace tonight. But you know it is not that simple. Rasputin trusted Felix. He thought Felix was a friend. That trust was the trap. A visitor comes to see you. An ordinary woman from the city, hoping you will bless her family. You sit with her and speak gently. This is the side of Rasputin that the nobles never talked about. To ordinary Russians, you were often kind, generous, and surprisingly human. After she leaves, you sit quietly and think about how you got here. Born in a tiny village in Siberia. No education, no connections, no money. Just an overwhelming belief that God had chosen you for something. That belief carried you all the way to the palace doors. By early afternoon, you feel the anxiety creeping in. Every knock on the door makes you tense. Every unfamiliar face in the hallway feels like a threat. You are living inside a body that has made 100 enemies, and you can feel every single one of them now. You decide to visit the palace. Not because you have to, but because being near the royal family feels like the safest place in St. Petersburg right now. No one would dare touch you while the Empress is watching. You wrap yourself in a thick coat and step outside. The cold hits you immediately. Siberian cold runs in this body's blood, so it does not bother you the way it would others. People on the street recognize you and stare. Some bow their heads. Some look away quickly. A few glare with open hatred. You keep walking. At the palace, the Empress greets you warmly. She speaks about Alexei, about the war, about the political situation. She asks your opinion on a minister she is considering dismissing. You give careful advice, knowing that in history, Rasputin's influence over her made the nobility absolutely furious and desperate. The Tsar Nicholas is away at the front, commanding the army, which means Alexandra is running things, and Alexandra runs things by consulting you. The nobles hate this. They are convinced you are destroying Russia from the inside, steering the royal family toward disaster. Some of them are not entirely wrong. You leave the palace in the late afternoon. The sun sets early in a Russian winter, and already the sky is turning dark purple and gray. You think about what the history books say about tonight. Felix will invite you over, claiming his wife Irina wants to meet you. That detail sticks with you. Irina Yusupova was one of the most beautiful women in Russia. Rasputin was flattered by the idea that she wanted to meet him. Vanity was the hook they used. They knew exactly what would get you to walk into that basement willingly. Back at your apartment, a note arrives in the evening. It is from Felix. He writes warmly, almost affectionately, and mentions that his wife is visiting and would love your company. There it is. The exact invitation that history recorded. Your hands tighten around the paper without even thinking. You set the note down and stand very still. This is the moment. Every version of this story ends the same way. You go and you die. The question burning inside you right now is whether knowing the future actually changes anything, or if you were always going to go anyway. You try to talk yourself out of going. You tell yourself you are tired, that you will send a message, that you can meet Felix another time. But even as you think these things, you find yourself moving toward the wardrobe and picking out your finest embroidered shirt. The pull is overwhelming. Maybe it is fate. Maybe Rasputin was always the kind of man who walked toward danger instead of away from it. Maybe that is exactly what made him both legendary and doomed. You look at yourself in the mirror one more time, and something in those eyes says, go anyway. You eat dinner alone, slowly. Every bite feels significant. You drink wine and sit with your thoughts and think about the life this man lived. Poverty, ridicule, glory, power, love, hatred, and now this. A dinner table, a note on the table, and a night that history already wrote. Around midnight, you call for your coat. Your servant looks at you with an expression you cannot quite read. Maybe he knows something. Maybe the whole household has heard whispers. St. Petersburg was a city that ran on gossip and secrets, and tonight both were running at full speed. The carriage ride to the Yusupov Palace is cold and quiet. You watch the frozen river through the window as you pass over a bridge. The navel is completely iced over, black and solid under the night sky. You know what that river means for you before this night ends. The palace is enormous and magnificent. Even by the standards of a man who regularly visits royalty, this place is something else. Felix Yusupov greets you at the door, smiling and gracious. He is young, handsome, and treating you like a beloved guest. You know exactly what he is doing. He leads you down to a basement dining room. It is decorated nicely, with a fireplace and food and wine already set out. He explains that Irina is still getting ready upstairs, and will be down shortly. You sit and accept a glass of wine. The trap is fully set. The wine is poured, and you hold the glass. You know the stories. Cyanide in the wine, cyanide in the cakes on the table. Enough poison to kill several men, and yet according to every account, the poison barely seemed to affect Rasputin at all. Your body is a fortress. You eat one of the small cakes and feel nothing unusual. You sip the wine and still nothing. Felix is watching you carefully, trying to hide his panic. He expected you to collapse. He has been waiting for it. But you just reach for another cake and settle further into your chair. You notice Felix excuse himself for a moment, and you hear muffled voices from above. He is reporting upstairs to the other conspirators. There are several of them tonight. Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich, a member of the royal family itself, is among them. This plot goes very deep and very high. You feel the slightest dizziness and acknowledge that the poison is doing something, even if it is not doing what they planned. You think about standing up and leaving. You have every reason to, but there is also something else, something almost calm inside you that just stays seated and waits. Felix comes back and sits with you again. He is nervous now, visibly so. He picks up a revolver that had been lying near him, and you look at it without flinching. Something in the way this body carries itself simply does not register fear the way a normal person would. It is extraordinary. The shot comes, and it hits you. The pain is massive and immediate, and you fall. Felix and the others rush over, convinced it is finally done. There is a long silence in the basement. They believe it is over. They stand around catching their breath and feeling the worst of it lifting. And then you move. You get up. Not gracefully, not easily, but you get up. Every account of this moment says the same thing. Rasputin rose after being shot and went for Felix directly. The conspirators panicked completely. Whatever they thought they knew about killing a man was not applying here tonight. You make it out of the basement and into the courtyard outside. The cold air hits your face. You are bleeding heavily, and everything is spinning, but your legs keep moving. Something inside this body refuses to stop. It is the most primal survival instinct you have ever felt in your life. More shots come from behind you. You fall again in the snow. The courtyard is quiet except for the sound of your own breathing and the distant creak of the frozen city around you. The men approach again, carefully this time, still not fully believing what they are dealing with. They beat you, thoroughly and brutally, making absolutely certain this time. Then they wrap you in cloth and carry you toward the river. You are still barely conscious and aware, which means you experience something that almost no one in history has ever experienced quite this completely, the full weight of your own ending. The Neva River is frozen solid, and they have found a place where the ice was broken. The water underneath is black and shockingly cold, even for a body from Siberia, even for a man who has survived everything tonight. The water closes over you, and everything becomes slow and muffled and dark. And somewhere in those final moments, you think about the village you came from, a place so small and forgotten that most maps of Russia never included it. A boy with dirt on his boots and fire in his eyes, who decided that God had plans for him, and maybe God did. When they found your body days later, they say your hands were raised as if you had tried to claw through the ice from beneath. Even at the very end, still fighting, still refusing to accept what was happening. That stubbornness was the defining quality of this man from the very beginning. What is remarkable is what happened after. The men who killed you thought they had saved Russia. They thought removing Rasputin would stabilize the throne and fix the crisis. Instead, within months, the entire Romanov dynasty collapsed. The royal family was overthrown. Nicholas and Alexandra were eventually executed. The world they knew ended anyway. Rasputin had actually warned the Tsar about this in letters. He wrote that if he were killed by Russian nobles, the royal family would not survive him by more than 2 years. He was right almost to the month. Whether that was prophecy or just sharp political observation, no one has fully agreed. The men who murdered him got very little reward for it. Felix Yusupov spent the rest of his life in exile, stripped of his homeland, telling the story of that night over and over to anyone who would listen. The killing that was supposed to fix everything fixed absolutely nothing at all. Rasputin became more famous in death than he ever was in life. Stories about him grew wilder with every decade. His resilience that night turned into legend. Books were written, films were made, songs were recorded. A peasant from Siberia became one of the most talked about figures in all of modern history. And the mystery at the center of it all never really went away. How did he survive so long that night? Was it the adrenaline, the cold, a misidentified poison, sheer physical toughness? Historians have debated it endlessly. Scientists have run tests. Nobody has given a fully satisfying answer that closes the case. Living this day, even just in your imagination, gives you a completely different understanding of the man. Not the cartoon villain that history sometimes makes him, not the holy saint his followers believed in, just a deeply complicated person who rose further than he had any right to and fell harder than anyone expected. You think about the power he had, the enemies he made, the loyalty he inspired, and the fear he caused. All of it born from a simple stubbornness, to be something more than what the world said he was allowed to be. There is something uncomfortably human about that, when you sit with it. And now, as the river closes over, and the last of the cold fades away, you understand why the story of Rasputin never gets old. It is not really about a mystic or a madman. It is about what happens when an ordinary person refuses to accept the limits the world puts on them, even to the very end.